Mike Prendergast, Limerick man. I won't say exiled in France because you've been there nearly as long as you're in Limerick now. At this point, Racing 92 coach joins me. Mike, what's it been like in France? What's the lockdown been like so far?
Yeah, we're into our third week of it now, Don. Unfortunately, we're living in an apartment, so we're really confined. We've no garden, unfortunately, and the weather's lovely here, so we're literally stuck in the apartment and abiding by, I suppose, the rules and regulations that were outlaid to us. And literally, we've been leaving the apartment. I have been just to go to the shop to get our necessities. Outside that, last week we had my wife is pregnant, so we had an appointment with the gynae, and that was like nearly a treat to jump in the car and break the day a small bit. So yeah, we've been really confined, but I keep saying it's the right thing to do as well, and they're quite strict over here in terms of penalties and whatnot. If you step out of line, basically, there's 4 or 5 reasons why you can leave. For obvious reasons, your necessities, if you've doctor appointments, obviously if you go to the hospital and whatnot. So they're really clamping down on it, and they have been for the last couple of weeks. So literally everybody is indoors, bar, as I said, you'll see a few bodies or a few people around when you're going to the shop, and that's about it.
One of the things we're trying to do here on video chat is just to, I suppose, talk to people. There's no sport to give us an escape, but what we can do is talk about sport. There's no live sport, but so something I wanted to pick your brain on. And obviously I think Bernard Chapman was talking during the week about your player to coach pathway into the professional game. So if we can talk about that, maybe for those that don't know, Mike, obviously you played with Munster, Bourgoin, Gloucester, back to Munster, and then coaching, was it with Young Munsters that you started coaching and then into the Munster A setup, or was it with Munster A and then Young Munsters?
Yeah, I started a long time ago when I was playing. At a couple of injuries. I did my cruciate and my shoulder and stuff, and I suppose I was looking for something to do as well while I was injured, because I know it's well documented when you're injured as a professional player, you spend a lot of time on your own and your rehab on your own and whatnot. So I was playing with Garryowen at the time, and I was about 23, and I didn't know was my contract going to be renewed, because I had one injury after the other, and thankfully Munster did renew it. But in between that, to keep myself busy, I suppose I started coaching just from I coached the thirds out in Garryowen, actually, which was the first start. It was a bit of fun, bit of crack, but also it just got you, coaching in front of groups, speaking in front of groups and whatnot, And then as I went on, kind of even with Young Munsters, it was always, while I was playing, I was always doing a small bit or involved with coaches in terms of, game plans and whatnot, and sometimes not actually coaching, but just giving your input. And it was something that I suppose I always wanted to do when I finished. And it started at a young enough age. I was only about 23 or 22 when I was coaching, say, for example, the Garryowen thirds, and then went on to Munster to play. And when I moved to Bourgoin, I did a small bit with their academy over there as well. As a foreigner, there was a foreign coach who was involved there, and he just wanted different ideas from an Irish perspective or whatever, in terms of skills and whatnot. So started doing a bit there, and then obviously I went back to Ireland to play with Munster my last year, and along there I started to do my coaching courses through the RFU, which were a great help, and even from a point of view of getting to know other coaches and whatnot. And then obviously I retired in 2009, and Young Munsters offered me a full-time role as a director of rugby, fortunately, and what a great place to start. Great experience. I was about 34, I think 33 at the time. I was a player coach, so I still had a fix of playing and really enjoyed it as well. And there was a season or two where it got a bit probably heavy and a bit much when you were trying to play and you're trying to coach. And it was a director rugby job. It wasn't just with the senior team. You're implementing structures and whatnot from the under 20s and organising seconds and even tipping in with the underage as well, which was a great experience, because I remember ringing Declan Kidney when I was offered it and asked him his advice, and he said, from his experience of coaching a club, everyone from the bagman up to the president, and you have everything covered, and you have to. So from that point of view, it was great. It was great, I suppose. Kickstart, it was a great place to start, and thankfully, Young Munsters offered me that role, and it was a full-time gig. And within that, then I coached Art Skull, and I coached Glen Stall as well from a school's perspective. So kind of give you a different view as well, and players coming through and whatnot. And I was at the same time, I did Munster A part-time. So it was rugby from morning, afternoon and evening, basically, So, but I loved it. It was tough. It was challenging. There was a lot of work involved in it, but as I said, a great place. And with the Munster A, I suppose, involvement, it allowed you to get back into the professional setup. And I was able to go obviously to Munster training sessions and whatnot, so get your finger in there. And I was doing that for 4 years with young Munsters, and I suppose towards the last year, I suppose I wanted to try and see, could I get into something professionally in Ireland? It's tough, because you literally have 5 professional teams. That includes your national side. So trying to get the break, trying to get opportunity, there wasn't too much. And I've said it before, I know what I'm saying. I literally scoured the world to get an opportunity, from contacts that I had, coaches to ex-players that I used to play with from Australia, New Zealand. I remember getting on to the likes of Owen Redden, who was coached by Ian McGeechan, who was with Bath at that time. Just literally everywhere and anywhere I had a contact. Unfortunately enough, then in 2013, Bernard Jackman was with Grenoble, and they were looking for a skills coach. So it was actually a great role to start that, for your first role. So I went in there in 2013, and following year I had the fortune, I was offered the backs job. Did that for 2 years, and then the attack job on the last year of my time at Grenoble. Then after that, I went on to Oyonnax for a season and Stade Francais last season. So I had 2 more years as an attack coach, and then this role fortunately came up in Racing, and today I've hugely enjoyed it. Missing it at the moment. I'm sure every coach and player are in the same boat, but so that's kind of my experience. And I suppose when you look at it in terms of being a director of rugby with a club like Young Munsters, and then go on as a skills coach, backs coach, every year is a stepping stone. And you come across so many people, players, especially in France, because there's so many different nationalities. And just as you're going along, it's and I've been to a couple of clubs over here as well. So this is my 4th club. So, but it's been all an experience and thoroughly enjoyed. And as I say, every year you're working with different coaches, you're dealing with new groups of players. It's all challenging, but as I said, it's been thoroughly enjoyable.
Tell me, what about coaching philosophy? So, like when you were thinking about becoming a coach, obviously way back with Garryowen, you would have wanted them to like play a certain way, and obviously like coaches will keep core values with them the whole way through. It's what makes them that coach. How much have you kept, and how much, as you mentioned there, has been shaped by those that you've met or the players that you have? Because no offense to the Garryowen Thirds, they're not Racing 92.
No, but it was a good start. Look, I said before, I don't really have a philosophy as such. I suppose that the way I look at the game, I like to have your team moving a lot, play a bit of wit, but it's easy. There's one thing saying put a bit of wit to your game, but you have to structure that. You have to give a team a framework to play within, whether it be different systems. And even going back in the day, the systems weren't as I suppose as structured as they are now, in terms of now you have your 1-3-3-1s and your 2-4-2s. And look, I'd be the type of coach that whatever system you play, you like your players to express themselves within that. And I think within that, the big thing for me, I suppose, if there's anything I would look at is and I did start from a professional point of view as a skills coach. And I think your skills within a system is a massive part. It's a huge part to play in. But as I said, look, through my career as a coach, I've been in different environments. And I suppose, being honest with you, when I was in Grenoble, it was a huge learning curve. And how you wanted to play. And myself and Bernard Jackman used sit down and think a lot about the game, and we used to share an awful lot of ideas. And he's a smart guy, he's a smart coach. You can see that by his analysis on television. And look, I would learn a lot through Bernard, being honest with you as well. Even from an attack point of view, he had great ideas, and we'd bounce them off each other. And I remember the last 2 years we implemented the 2-4-2, and it was a system that I think the players really enjoyed, and it was good to watch. And I suppose from that, as a coach, I kind of grew, and my mentality would be to try and, use as much space, pull a team apart in terms of the system, in terms of their spacing and whatnot, and just look for those weak points in defence, whether it be, now these days defences are quite dominant, so you have to look for maybe a bit more kick space in the backfield, and that's an interesting, I suppose, aspect that over maybe the last year or so, especially working with a guy like Finn Russell, that he's a brilliant rugby player, he's a brilliant decision maker, he's brilliant on the line, but he's also got a really, really good at kicking offensive game, and we'd work quite closely together on that. And look, I'll be honest, I've learned some things from a guy like him and vice versa, because as a coach, you're always learning as well. And there's plenty of boys in our squad that you pick up bits and pieces. And I just think when you're a coach, and I'd be the type of coach that'd be very open as well. I like listening to ideas, and I make that clear when I go into a club. I have my own ways of doing things and my own ways of looking at certain scenarios, but I do like input from players, because I feel that on a weekend, that if there is that input, we're all in it together, and you live by the sword, you die by the sword mentality, I suppose.
Question I've always wanted to ask these professional coaches at the top level that have also coached at the All-Ireland League, two-prong. One is it easier to coach better players? And what is the standard actually like in that All-Ireland League compared to some of the pro players that you may meet from other countries? Just because, as you mentioned, it's so hard to get into the pro game here.
Yeah. The question about is it harder to coach AIL players or professional players is a good question, actually. I'm not too sure, really. It's I suppose with the professional players, because you're in an environment every day, and you have the opportunity to upskill them, and obviously through the video work, and I do a lot of work in terms of, not a lot of work, I've started to do over the last season or two of sending information on WhatsApp, in terms of feedback from training and stuff. And because boys are full-time, they can have a look at it, so when we come in next day, they're kind of up to speed with it, or if you're doing it the following week or whatever. So having players on a day-to-day basis makes it easier. Obviously, they've been doing that for a while. They're in a big club like Racing, so they're there probably for a reason as well. A lot of them are world-class players. The majority of them are. So maybe from the on-field stuff, they get things quite quickly, I should say. But from the groups that I worked with, especially young Munsters, I was fortunate to have a really good group of players at the time, with the likes of Ger Slattery and Liam Oak Murphy, and there's so many of them I could name. Alan Kingsley, who's went on to coach. So and as I said, there's a group of those lads, and some of them are coaching now in the IL, like Ray Maloney in Navan and whatnot, which is great to see. So if you're asking me, is there? Yeah, there probably is, really, because I suppose they pick it up quicker because they're in there every single day, and it makes it easier, and they can upskill themselves. And from a point of view of the AIL coaching wise, there's a huge amount of talent there in terms of the coaches that are out there, and that's not just at 1A. You look down some of the divisions, and there's ex-players there that have been ex-professionals, and look, they're probably looking to cut their teeth with their either local club or the club they just finished up with. And I suppose I was that person a couple of years ago, just looking for that opportunity. Fortunately, it came up. There was a bit of luck to it. I didn't know Bernard that well. It was through Paul and Quinny, actually, that helped me there as well. So and if I could do anything on that side, if a player or a coach was ever looking, there was opportunities. You try to do your best for people, because it happened to me, and they're at a good level as well. Because with the coaching courses that are provided at home, look, with every club, obviously in a province, there's some association towards the provincial team, whether it's, especially in 1A, you look at it, like my own brother Gar out in Young Munsters, he'd have a good few of the academy lads and lads that have went on that are playing with Munster even a bit more at the moment. And from that point of view, again, it's a learning curve. He's probably taken some stuff that they've picked up from different coaches over the last couple of years, including Stephen Larkin, who's there at the moment, or Graham Roundtree, or Felix previous to that, or whoever it may be. So there's a huge amount of AIL coaches, a huge amount of talented AIL coaches there, that some of them would want to go on to be professional coaches. Others, they get their fix from doing it on a Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday game, and they have a different career, and they really enjoy that. And that's totally understandable as well, because you can base yourself at home. The probability is you don't have to up sticks like I did. I've enjoyed it because I did it as a player. It just all depends on your family situation and whatnot as well. But Yeah, definitely. It's there's huge quality, huge amount of quality coaches there, and I'm sure a good few of them would jump at the opportunity. And you can never say never. That opportunity could be just around the corner for some of them.
Coming from the Munster rugby dressing room that you did, the famous one, Claw, Galliv, all these massive characters. Quinny has talked about them an awful lot, as has Ronan O'Gara, who I know you're very close with as well from your time in France together. Tell me, I mean, if right now you had an open blank checkbook, I asked you this before about current players, I'm going to ask you one now about past players. Which player from that classic Munster team, the early 2000s, let's say late 90s, would you open checkbook take right now that could live in the modern professional era, video analysis, 1-3-3-1, 2-4-2? Who's those players? What players there would still be world class even today?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. You have to put me into an awkward now because I'm friendly.
No, there's no problem leaving anyone else. No problem leaving anyone.
There is a good lad. Obviously, Raj speaks for himself. Sorry, you've guys like Alan Quinlan, Jerry Flannery. Even guys like Mikey Mullins, what an outstanding player. I suppose if there was one that maybe didn't get even the limelight that maybe he deserved, but as a player, when you played with him, and I was fortunate to meet him a long time ago in primary school, go to secondary school with him, go on to play with Garryowen, and then Munster, was probably Wally, David Wallace, an incredible rugby player. And in the modern day, just with his athleticism and everything, he would, and obviously everything has moved on a notch, and Wally would have been moving along with that, which, when you think about that, would turn him into an incredible rugby player, which he was anyway, but Wally would be, he'd be one that would probably stick out straight away, I'm sure.
Moving forward into today, Mike, Racing 92, I had the pleasure this year of travelling over to La Défense Arena, watching you play Munster indoor, and it's a bonkers stadium. I'll get to that in a minute. But in terms of the lineup, the players, you were talking there about having these guys every day. From a back point of view, I think you had Vakatawa, Finn Russell, Teddy Tama, Doolan, Zebo was injured on the bench. Just Siobhan Shee there as well, I think, who was captain on the same day. I mean, those guys' appetite for rugby, but also appetite for the unstructured and the fun and the enjoyment. It must be a breeze walking in there every day. It must be very enjoyable. Not easy, but enjoyable to coach guys at that level. Yeah,
no, it is. It is. They're very, first and foremost, they're an incredibly good bunch of lads that are really keen to learn. I think there was, I suppose, one thing that I noticed that set them apart, especially for a French club, was their hunger. Obviously, the World Cup was this year. We had a very young group. At the start of the year, we lost a good few games, very narrowly, I remember. And I remember saying to the players that this will turn. I remember having a conversation with Garrod, my brother, same in Young Munsters, before Christmas. They were losing games. I'd be ringing him afterwards, or he'd be ringing me, and we're losing by 2 points. Young Munsters were losing 2 points. I remember saying, stick with it, it'll turn, and unfortunately for Munsters after Christmas it did. And also for us, I suppose, look, the wave of talent that came back, international players that came back, including the likes of Teddy Toma and Firmi Vakatawa and Finn Russell and these guys, obviously makes that a lot easier. But the thing is, I was going to say about them is that first and foremost, they're a brilliant group to coach, and I suppose that the one thing is that they try to do here is they try to enjoy themselves. They work hard, but they enjoy it. They have a good balance, and that's been there for a while. They're a group that have been together for a while now. And as I said, sorry, just come back to what I was trying to. I lost my train of thought there. What I was saying was that I noticed that just after the World Cup, the internationals came back with 1 or 2 league games. Our first game in the Champions Cup, we were playing Saracens at home, and I couldn't get over the enthusiasm and the concentration and the excitement on the Monday of that week when we came in, that we're heading into the Champions Cup. So I could see from just as a new coach coming in, I could see there was something different about them, and that was one thing that stood out to me, thinking these guys want to win something. So what I was trying to get at is they'd won a top 14 in 2006. They've been so close from a Champions Cup point of view. So these guys want to win, and that makes your job a lot easier, And look, the other side of it is there's a very good setup there. There's a very good structure. There's a brilliant president who's created, a really good environment to work in terms of our conditions. We've phenomenal training facilities. We eat, and it's incredible food and the way we're looked after. And then every second weekend you're playing in an indoor arena that turns into a disco afterwards. So it's not a bad place to work. But as I said, look, the boys, the other side of it, because Jackie Lorenzetti, our owner, has provided this, they respect that an awful lot and they want to stay here. So the thing is, like, it's a club that are up there at the top of Europe and the top 14 in France. But players want to come here because what the president has provided in terms of having a really nice working atmosphere. So they appreciate that and they really work hard. And on top of that, then you've a very good director of rugby, director of sportif, it's called, is Yannick Nyanga. So he's kind of in between the players and the coaching staff. And then our head man, our head coach would be Laurent Travers. He's been here 7 years. He knows the club inside out. He's got very good values. The players really respect that. So it makes our jobs. He leaves the coaches coach. He doesn't interfere, not interfere, but he leaves the coaches express themselves and coach the way they want to coach, which has been a breath of fresh air for me, to be honest with you, since I've arrived here.
Tell me, I was doing the commentary for the radio over in the ground this year, and as you say, it turns into a disco, and it's like that was a moment for me when I went, you've come a long way here from Greenfields. What was the moment where you kind of, at one stage in your career, maybe even went, I'm like, not that you've made it, but we've come a long way here from, as you say, talking to the kit man, the guy in the middle, the PRO, and the president of Young Munsters all in the space of 2 phone calls. At what point did you kind of think this is pro rugby?
I don't know really. Has it? I just enjoy going in every day. There hasn't been one moment really, I suppose, that sticks out. I suppose look, my favorite moment of since I've been in professional rugby as a coach probably was that first game against Saracens. Albeit, look, they didn't have their full, what happened with Saracens, they sent a kind of mixed team or whatever. They didn't have their full team, but I remember us getting a bonus point near the end. And I was just seeing the boys coming in that week and thinking to myself, if these guys can come in at this level and this mentality every week, this is a good place to be, I remember coming in when the final whistle went and we did get the bonus point and just experienced that week and the enthusiasm and the energy the likes of Virmi Vakatawa and these guys brought. I kind of sat down afterwards and said, this is good. This is where I want to be. There wasn't actually just one moment that stands out to say, but for me, kind of just that whole week, I felt that this is a special place to be. But that's all well and good. You got to win competitions, and that's what our president expects as well and wants to do. So whether it's disappointing, obviously, what's after happening for everybody. Look, sport is put to the back burner. It's lives and it's health and it's everything that's more important at the moment. From the rugby perspective, it's timing was unfortunate that this happened. We were third in the league with a quarterfinal of a Champions Cup. But look, hopefully all going well, things will be able to be played towards, because we can play here till July. Whether there will be enough time or not, I'm not sure. But it's disappointing. But look, priorities in place, and our health and our is everything to us.
If I was to ask you before we just finish up, if I was to ask you what advice would you give to that guy now in his mid-20s maybe, who's watching this and is coaching and is thinking about wanting to become a pro and is going to hopefully make that jump from the amateur rugby into, or maybe even from playing to coaching and from amateur coaching into professional coaching, what bit of advice would you give someone like that, having travelled that road?
Yeah, I think, look, it all depends on how long you've coached, in terms of, are you ready or are you not? I had 4 years, as I said, luckily with a very good club and a very good group. I had good structures around me. It was at a good level in terms of 1A and 1A competition as it is today, very incredibly high standard. So I just think it depends how far you're down the road. If you are at 4 or 5 years and you feel you have enough built up, well, then the only way is you've got to go out and look and try to open doors. But if you're younger, it's just picking up as much experience. You'll have certain guys that will be in academies and stuff. They'll be exposed to professional coaches, and pick their brains. And if you can, and I'm sure the provinces, whether it be Munster or Leinster, wherever it is, or Connacht or Ulster, they'd be willing to leave their coaches in to see how they operate, you know. But it's what would I say to them is just keep the head down, work, just learn as much as you can every day, and be open to people's ideas. You know, have your own, we call it philosophy, your own ways of doing things. But the biggest thing is just gaining that experience as you go along. Because I know they say it about players having the experience, but one thing I've noticed over, I suppose I'm here nearly 7 years, is the experience you are gathering and are gaining is invaluable. And as I look back from where I am now to when I came into Grenoble, the amount of learnings I've had, fortunately, and as I've moved a couple of clubs for different reasons, but I look at that as a learning curve, as a new experience, and as a new challenge every year.
Perfect, Mike. Thank you very much for your time, and stay safe, and hopefully you'll get out to the shop a couple more times in the next couple of weeks.
Cheers. Look after yourself.
Cheers.